Magnify that death sphere. Why is it still blurry?
Making it bigger doesn't make it clearer.
It does on CSI Miami.
Today we're going to be looking at quite a bit of information about the next patch, that is patch 3.9 for Stellaris. We're going to be looking at what is going to get reworked, what the Custodian team are focusing on, and then before that we're also going to be checking out one of the summer experiments, an experiment that was looking to shake things up with one of the more unpopular systems, leader capacity. That experiment didn't go so well, but there were quite a few, as they like to say in Scandinavia, learnings that the developers gained from this summer experiment, and there are some indications on the way they would like to take leaders in the future. So without any further ado, let's dive in and find out what's going on. First, we're going to go through the leader experiments. Now, we must bear in mind that these experiments were somewhat a failure in as much as they did not pan out. The ideas pushed, the changes that were tried didn't work overall, but they did lead to some new thoughts, new ideas, and that is what we're going to be getting later on. So after covering this initial not successful experiment, we're going to be looking at what this means for the future of our leaders and the changes the devs would like to make there. So why are the devs looking at leaders? Well, let's find out. Galactic Paragons reintroduced a limit to the number of leaders you could recruit at one time. And while it was a soft cap that you could exceed, experience gains were reduced, and once you hit twice the cap, all leader experience stopped. In subsequent patches, the devs relaxed some of the numbers and added more ways to increase the cap, but it is still a rather unpopular system that could use some work. Currently, the presence of a less valuable leader, like a general for example, takes up the same space as something like a scientist or an admiral, which leads to unsatisfying gameplay decisions. Do I keep the crappy general and lose my scientist or admiral, or vice versa, or do I just bite the bullet and take less experience? Well, the devs mentioned a few things that they were planning on looking at over the summer back in Dev Diary 302, along with some of the issues that they expected to run into. So what did the devs try? Well, during their experiments, they added the ability to have individual leader caps by class. So that general mentioned above would only use up specific general capacity, but scientists would be governed by their own limit. Overcap effects would likewise be per class. So if you had too many admirals, their progression would slow, but other leader classes would be unaffected. They also experimented with retaining wildcard capacity, so you could always get a few over before starting to run into penalties. Now overall, that sounds quite interesting. It does somewhat sound like you're going to be getting more leaders, but maybe not. Maybe they were trying to experiment by having just the same number of leaders split into these different capacity slots. In that case, it would very much change how many of each leader you could have. For example, at the moment, you could have 6 scientists early game, get rid of a bunch and replace them into admirals later on in the game, and that would be completely fine. With this system with specific capacities per leader class, you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd be stuck to your specific leader caps for each leader type. I can see how that would be very limiting in some cases, though freeing in others. Well, how did it go? The experiment largely failed, as you already know because we mentioned that at the start, due to UX issues. Stellaris isn't always the easiest game to pass information from, but this turned out diabolically bad and difficult to fix. As we can see from the images on our screen at the moment, the information transfer is made even harder by envoys acting as their own special version, that have their own capacity but behave entirely differently from all of the other leaders in the game. As we can see from these images, you have leader capacity, that's how it currently is, 3 leader capacity base and 3 available envoys, displayed as 1/3 and then 3 in curly brackets. When it got changed, well, Now we've got a different leader capacity for every class, so we want to know actually how close we are, whether we are over or under. Just like rare resources, which are their own little mess, to be honest, this would have been very difficult to see. You'd have to hover over the 1/3 to see, oh look, we're actually over on our governor cap, but under on our general cap. This could have possibly been shown as something like 1/0/1/2, open bracket +2, and then pipe, open bracket 3, close bracket. But that's very, very confusing. I mean, that was a mouthful just to read out. And yeah, I can see how that would have led to some annoying issues. Having said that, there is quite a lot of toolbar space. So maybe they could have had 5 separate UX elements, one for envoys, one for governors, scientists, generals, and admirals, because there is still loads and loads of room on that green bar at the top of the screen. So I'm somewhat confused by this UX issue that they're raising here. Unless, ladies and gentlemen, that area is being earmarked for some other in-game information we're going to get displayed there in the near future, possibly. Needless to say, the devs decided that 5 different leader types plus the wildcard was too difficult to explain clearly in the top bar, where the limited space is a major issue. I'm assuming, again, that means that there is some reason they're not filling up the currently open and empty space in that bar. I'm guessing that probably means they have plans for it in upcoming and future releases, or at least I'm hopeful. And even in the expanded space available in tooltips, they felt that this 5-leader kajiggering would be very difficult to understand. They could have continued spending time refining this, but decided that they'd rather pursue a greater rework that they're hoping to release alongside the 3.10 update. Custodian initiatives do not generally have hard release dates. If it's not in the 3.10 freeze, it may move out to 3.11. So bear in mind that there is a leader rework coming of some size, but that won't be till later on. The devs will go into full details after the release of the next update, that is the 3.9 Caelum update, but a quick summary involves consolidating the current 5-leader classes down to just 3. That would mean we would completely do away with envoys, which is both fantastic because now anything that has the envoy role will be getting its own traits and its own abilities, but also kind of confusing and interesting, and they'd be condensing the leaders down to commanders, diplomats, and scientists. And this would involve a rework of how envoys are used. So either the envoys will be completely gone and included in that diplomat class, which I think are going to be the governors. If that is the case, definitely exciting, because now that would mean envoys can have, as I said, actual traits. They will have lifespans. We will actually care about the things our diplomats are up to. On the other hand, if they just rework the envoys to stop being leaders entirely and just being some kind of mana-based number, that would be sad, and I hope they don't go that way. Reducing the generals and admirals as well down into a single class, the commander class, well, that could be very, very, very bad. We could end up with admirals that get stuck with a number of general type traits that we absolutely do not want. It could also mean that all of the general type traits are just completely not picked. And that would be a real shame. That would basically limit the picks we have for our admirals down to a smaller pool of admiral class traits, because we wouldn't want to grab those general traits which are included there. Kind of depowering admirals overall and making an increase in leader trait picks more powerful than ever before. I'm also going to assume that the diplomat class is going to be a mixture of governors and envoys. That could be interesting, though I'm a little confused about the naming here for diplomats. What are we doing with governors? If we're calling them diplomats, that doesn't really thematically make sense to me, but we'll have to see exactly what is planned later down the line. Until then, they're planning on making some adjustments to the overcap formulas to reduce their effects until the greater rework is complete. All praise to the custodians. And if you're enjoying this video, please take custody of that like button. Well, we've heard about the leaders that are not coming until patch 3.10 or 3.11. what about the features? What are the changes we're going to be getting with the new patch 3.9, which should be coming out relatively soon, or at least I'm hoping in Q3. In this dev diary, they're comparing patch 3.9 to the massive 3.1 LEM update, which I have to say is very, very exciting if that is the case. So like 3.1, 3.9 has a lot of general improvements scattered across a great number of game systems. Let's dive into what those improvements are. So first off, Common Ground and Hegemony are getting some improvements. Your starting Federation members will no longer own your immediately neighbouring systems, allowing both you and them some room for early expansion. Whether or not this means that they don't take up your guaranteed habitable worlds, I don't know. I assume it means they still do. This is still going to be somewhat beneficial, though in some cases it may actually increase the amount of issues you have with expanding if you're locked in because your Federation starting members get the choke points further away from your capital. The Federation now starts with 0 cohesion rather than minus 100. This means it will level up faster, and you also start halfway to level 2 at 600 XP instead of 0. All of these changes I've just talked about can be seen right now on the image that we're looking at on our screen. So we're seeing here all of those additional bonuses that the two origins, or at least the Common Ground origin, is going to get. Along with Common Ground allowing you to pick your Federation type right from the start of the game, that means you could have a level 2 trade league after only a few in-game years. As a megacorp, that's probably pretty darn strong. The last change coming to these origins is the requirement, and those of you who are Machine and Hivemind players out there, you're going to love this. Well, the requirement banning Hiveminds and Machine Intelligences will be gone. Now it's going to be relaxed and allowing non-genocidal Hiveminds and Machine Intelligences not only to take this origin, but also possibly be AI Federation members that occasionally spawn in right from the start of the game. So you could have Hiveminds and Machines as your Federation compatriots right from the get-go. That is very exciting and definitely a fun gameplay and replayability buff for Machines and Hives. 3.9 is also going to be bringing a whole host of changes to Archaeotech and the traits and options surrounding them. So they have first off halved the energy upkeep of the facility of Archaeo Studies. This makes the Remnants origin infinitely more playable. That 20 energy upkeep was absolutely crippling at the start of the game. Reducing it to 10 is still expensive, but if you take the prosperity tradition early on, if you get some other building upkeep reductions, that can be brought down relatively quickly, and it means that your economy won't be nearly as difficult to manage right from the start of the game. They've added a new Admiral trait called Archaeotech Focus. This grants increased damage and fire rate with Archaeotech weapons. By itself, this change would be pretty useless unless you're going for the crisis and not paying minor artifacts, because trying to run lots of Archaeotech components on your ships has a massive, absolutely massive cost in terms of minor artifacts that most empires simply cannot bear, especially if they lose their fleet and have to replace them. However, there are further changes coming. They've decreased the research speed and draw weight for Archaeotech from the expertise trait. I think these are the maximum values, at least I'm pretty sure they are. But instead they've now made it so that the Archaeo Studies expertise will reduce your minor artifact cost for ship components. 5% isn't very much, even if you have 3 scientists or 4 scientists in your council. That's only a 20% reduction in minor artifact ship cost. I'm hoping that this isn't the highest level. I'm hoping it goes up to 10% so you can possibly get a 40 or 50% reduction in minor artifact cost. That way, Archaeotech could actually be viable in the right circumstances. The starting head of research for a Remnant Empire will get this expertise Archaeo Studies trait, buffing remnants from a Archaeotech perspective right from the start of the game. The Archeo Engineer's Ascension perk also now reduces the minor artifact ship cost for ship components by 10%. So they are looking at ways to stack a reduction in minor artifact cost for these ship components. That actually should make Archeo weaponry and Archeo defenses much more viable. The last thing they're doing is increasing the range of macro batteries by 50%. That could actually make them rather powerful. If their range is going up by 50%, the L-slot weapon will have a range of 150, putting on a par with X-slot weaponry and well beyond the maximum range of things like kinetic artillery. With no minimum range as well, even though the damage is around tier 3 to tier 4, slightly higher if you have the bonuses, it might see some use in kiting fleets, especially on kiting destroyers, possibly, though I am still dubious that this is going to do that much to change its overall position within the meta. A major pillar of the 3.9 patch is going to be some improvements to the Lithoids species pack. Now this is the first species pack that we had which gave a specific trait alongside a portrait style. This was then followed up with other packs like Necroids and Aquatics, but according to the devs, it is currently lacking a bit. It is behind some of the other packs, and they're going to be working on it and improving it for 3.9 Caelum. They don't have any specific details for us yet, but I'm very excited to find out what's going to be coming in the following weeks. And on top of that, there is even more that's going to be packed into 3.9. They've actually shared an image with us of all of the different things that are going to be changed. The only issue is it's a very, very small and pixelated image. Luckily, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to enhance it.
Let's enhance it.
Enhance. Enhance this.
Enhance.
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 Freeze and enhance.
All right, here we go. That's not fantastic. Let's enhance again. All right, CSI lied to us. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Absolute proof. Enhancing images doesn't really show us much. I mean, if we look back at the pixelated image here, let's try and work out what we're looking at. Right, so agendas are clearly changing on the top left. There are some changes coming to either the aquatic species pack or maybe just the aquatic trait around that pack. Possibly they're increasing the points value there or making some changes. On the top right, I'm definitely seeing something to do with engineering research. Maybe this is a trait. Maybe it is also an ascension perk. There's engineering research with some sort of buff, or maybe it's some sort of specialized engineering research. In the center, we have the clear visage of a Shroud Walker, and maybe we're going to be getting some sort of Shroud Walker interactions with Psionic Ascension, or maybe it's just general Shroud Walker interactions. Maybe we're getting a Shroud Walker leader, because this is reminiscent of the leader screen for Shroud Walker, so I'm suspecting that might have something to do with that. We are getting, on the bottom right here, a change to one of the origins. I think that pixelated blob looks like origins. Now, it may seem like I'm going mad here, but honestly, I think in the 5,500 hours that I've stared at Stellaris in the last 7 years, I generally have a good feel for the layout, even if you pixelate it, and that's why I'm confident to say that bottom right segment is almost definitely an origin. Though, yeah, no, that's definitely an origin. No, I don't think it's an ascension perk. That looks like flavor text to me. So I'm going to say origin, right. In the middle, the bottom middle, we've clearly got some changes to, I'm looking at traits here. That is the trait selection screen from the Empire creation menu. Going to the bottom left here, I think we're getting some changes to planetary management. That is definitely the enforcer symbol. Following that, we have unemployment. That middle symbol, though, I'm not entirely sure on, but I think we could be getting some rework here to planetary management, which would definitely be exciting. To the right of that, we have a screen which, now this one I'm definitely, this is the one I'm most not sure on. Just to the left of the Shroud Walker, but right of the planetary management screen, that definitely has some sort of mineral based, there's definitely something with minerals there. but overall I'm really not sure. I can't wait to see the fully clarified version of these that I haven't just used a dodgy AI upscaler to upscale and are actually not totally pixelated. If you've got any thoughts on what on earth we are seeing with this pixelated image, please let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear your theory crafting. If you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to find out more about the summer experiments for Stellaris and what the future holds for this game, click the video on screen now.